Flowers by Miley Cyrus is the #1 song in the world, debuting atop both the Billboard Global 200 and American charts. It's Miley's first #1 song in over a decade and her first song to debut at #1, and it's the top song in Spotify history, receiving the most streams in a week ever. It's a cultural phenomenon. What's notable is that Flowers isn't just a fun disco pop confection. It's actually a serious female empowerment anthem. It's really a song for women going their own way. The song's message is, I don't need a man. Anything a man can do for me, I can do for myself. Miley sings, I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours, say things you don't understand. I can love me better than you can. This uplifting message of strength and self-love adds to the canon of similar songs that stretches the length of pop music history. You Don't Own Me, I Will Survive, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Survivor, and Stronger. These songs, like Flowers, paint a positive picture of women's independence. They describe a woman on her own who isn't lonely or isolated, but instead capable, optimistic, and empowered, and complete without a man. And in the current cultural landscape, women are hungry for this message. More than ever, women are disaffected with relationships. They're recognizing the lies they've been sold about fairy tale romance for what they are. They've been failed by the prevailing power structure and toothless lipstick feminism that has failed to secure them the same level of rights that previous generations of women enjoyed. And more than ever, they experience and witness the sexual objectification of women. The dating scene for young women is bleak. It's filled with apps that can't even guarantee their basic safety. And the best women can hope for is that they won't be hurt or humiliated when meeting up with men who have learned everything they know about relationships from internet pornography. It's no wonder that the U.S. birth rate has been declining for a decade, and the average age of new mothers has steadily increased. Women are finding the idea of independence more appealing than ever. This is the cultural context in which Flowers is flourishing. And the song on its own is uplifting. It's refreshing to see a woman reframe the trauma of a breakup into a positive message of self-love. The song is great. But the music video is another thing. It is objectively porn. Call me a pearl clutcher, I don't care. Factually, the video is softcore pornography. It's perfectly engineered to appeal sexually to men, and because of that, it completely contradicts the message of the song. It's very hard to buy the song's core theme of I'm living for myself and I don't need a man when Miley is on screen performing for the good old male gaze, removing her clothes and gyrating in her underwear. Her words, directed at her ex-husband, say, I don't need you. I'm happy on my own. But her body says, look at what you're missing out on. This portrayal casts Miley not as the empowered subject, the independent woman she sings about, but as an object to be consumed and dreamed about and lusted after and regretted. Who is this video for? We're supposed to believe it's for her. It's not. Objectification is bad for women. Self-sexualization, centering men in the narrative and calling that female empowerment, and creating what is de facto pornography are things that are harmful for women. They're harmful to Miley as an individual, and they're harmful to all women because they promote the idea that women are objects. Liberal feminists would argue that with her performance, Miley is owning her sexuality. Hey, the video shows her dancing and exercising free by herself. I don't buy that. She isn't owning her sexuality, she's commodifying it and commercializing it and presenting herself as an object for consumption. You can't own something and sell it at the same time. The central struggle of radical feminism is to redefine women. Instead of objects, we want to be seen as having legitimate humanity the same way that a man has humanity. The idea of man as human and woman as object is so commonplace we don't even notice it. Sexism is the water we swim in. We need to push back against this idea. But in order to do that, we have to become aware of it and not just take it for granted that, well, that's just how the world works. Because to many of us, it's just not good enough to accept our role in this society as subhuman objects or second-class citizens. Objectification, which includes self-objectification or self-sexualization, reinforces the idea that women are objects and therefore is exactly the kind of thing we should be criticizing. All right, are you ready for some nuance? Let's go. Miley's actions in this video and throughout her adult career are worthy of criticism. And normally I would say women are not off the hook when it comes to criticism. Women, just as much as men, are capable of promoting the idea that women are objects, and when they do so, they're valid targets for criticism. In this video, Flowers, and others, Miley has equated messages of independence with hypersexualization. However, there is a complication in this case that, despite her harmful behavior, makes me want to give Miley Cyrus a big old pass, a lifetime pass. And that is that she was herself exploited from a very young age. She's now 29, and you might say that to give her a pass at this point for her behavior is infantilizing, that she's now old enough to take responsibility for her actions. But when you look at her history and the extreme way in which she was manipulated and exploited growing up in the entertainment industry, I can't blame her for being at the point that she's at right now and promoting the message that she promotes, although I will still recognize that it is damaging to women. Miley is the daughter of a famous country singer, Miley Cyrus, and she began her career on the Disney Channel. Frequently with female child stars, a point is reached when a wholesome, kid-friendly image is shed for a more grown-up, sexualized image. When that happens, it's always creepy. But what was done to Miley was particularly shocking, disgusting, and humiliating. When she was 15 years old, Miley was photographed naked or in a way that implied that she was naked, and that photo was published on the cover of Vanity Fair magazine. This was a real failure of the adults in her life who allowed this extreme level of childhood exploitation to happen. It was reminiscent of Brooke Shields being made to pose nude in Playboy magazine as a 10-year-old child. What was really CP was passed off as art, and that is wrong and disgusting and wholly unacceptable. And Miley was made to apologize for posing in that picture despite being a child and not in control. Because of her history, Miley's view of sexualization and fame and success is probably very warped and very tangled. I can understand why she thinks portraying herself in a pornographic way is a route to empowerment, when it's actually not. Miley is an extreme case, but really all of our minds have been warped to equate women's independence with women's sexualization. The origin of this equation goes back to the 1960s and 1970s when the introduction of the birth control pill and Roe v. Wade gave women a newfound freedom and independence that was a stark contrast to the repressed 1950s. Birth control and abortion afforded women new opportunities in employment. Marriage stopped being so compulsory. Women no longer had to take a subordinate role to men as they had before. In that period, sexualization and women's independence became entangled, and we haven't been able to separate them since. We haven't even really tried. Instead, we accept the status quo as it is and rationalize the situation by telling ourselves that women's sexual objectification is a route to independence. We tell ourselves that performing for the male gaze is the highest level of empowerment and actualization that a woman can achieve. We convince girls and women that in order to own themselves, they should take their clothes off in public. I want to take a moment to compare and contrast Flowers to a video that is similar but different in important ways, which is Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River. It's another massive hit breakup song. The message is a little less joyful, but still has the same theme of you messed up and look what you're missing out on. Here it is portrayed through the lyrics. Now you tell me you need me, girl I refuse, the bridges were burned. In both videos, the central figure is traipsing around a Los Angeles modernist mansion. But Justin Timberlake gets to enact his revenge fantasy in a more dignified way. At least he's fully clothed. He's much more of a subject than an object. He has agency, which Miley lacks. In Flowers, the male gaze is the subject, and Miley is the object. There is a male character off screen influencing her movements. In Cry Me a River, there are two female characters portrayed on screen, and incidentally, or not so incidentally, they're both sexualized. One of the women appears in a shower, as does Miley Cyrus in her video. But we're supposed to believe that there is a difference, that in Cry Me a River, the gal playing Timberlake's ex-girlfriend is the object of his regret or sorrow. That is, she's an object, passive and unaware. But Miley in the shower is supposedly the empowered, independent subject. It's very hard for me to buy that these aren't the same picture. In conclusion, the song Flowers is great. It's uplifting and empowering and has a great message that a woman can do anything for herself that a man could do for her, and she can do it better. But the video equates this message of independence with one of hypersexualization. And although I won't blame Miley for this, given her background of exploitation, it is worth noting that women, just as much as men, can promote this harmful message. The problem with obtaining power by selling your sexuality is that it's not true power. You can potentially enrich yourself this way, but power that's contingent on acting sexy or performing sexuality is not true power, because the second you stop performing as a sex object, your power disappears.
Do you want to be naked?
I don't always want to be naked. Once I came out on stage, and I came out, I was in a full Marc Jacobs dress, completely covered, and they wrote, Miley is boring. She doesn't get naked and she's boring.
If we ever want to experience the full humanity that men get to experience and have others recognize our humanity, we must reinvent the narrative around women's independence and reimagine independence that has nothing to do with our sex appeal. We can be subjects, we can be main characters, we can write our own stories. We don't have to be objects, but no one will give us our humanity if we don't assert ourselves. And that assertion starts with rejecting sexual objectification and reclaiming real freedom, real independence. There's no blueprint for this, but we can start to make one by questioning the status quo and critiquing what's popular. And we should take every opportunity to do that. Here are some questions we can start with. Do we even know what a woman's sexuality is when everything women do under the guise of owning their sexuality is tailored to male fantasy? Why don't we see male musicians writhing around in underwear? Why is it normalized for women but ridiculous and laughable if a man did it? Do people with actual power act as sex objects? Did they get into positions of power by acting sexy or taking off their clothes? Those are some good questions for you to ponder until I see you next time. Thanks for watching, and take care now. Bye!